Welcome to Courtney on Health, brought to you by MalcolmPresents.com. Maybe not exclusively, but we're on YouTube, and we're in Many Shades of Green.
Yes.
And Many Shades of Green. And Courtney, your website?
The Many Shades of Green.
The Many Shades of Green.
Yes, you got to add the.
When in this case, it's parsley, lettuce, Many Shades of Green.
Rosemary and thyme.
Rosemary and
thyme. There you
go. So let's start in terms of time.
Take it away.
Okay, I'm gonna do the usual. So hi, Courtney, and hi, Malcolm. Welcome to Courtney on Health, a Zoomcast series about how to get through these lingering COVID times. And I shake my head, with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York area and beyond, and will help guide you on a path to wellness and health. So today I will start with a quick kind of real fast poem. It's called Our Kitchen Rules. If you empty it, fill it. If you dirty it, clean it. If you open it, close it. If you spill it, wipe it up. If you cook it, share it. But in addition, if you need a kitchen hack, follow Courtney on Health for some great tips. That wasn't in the poem. I threw that in.
Wow. That sort of confused me. I've never heard the term kitchen hacks. When I think of kitchen hacks, I always think of somebody that does something wrong.
Hacker or a slacker.
Yeah.
All right, let me do this quick little intro, and then Courtney will give you everything you want to know about kitchen hacks. So eating is a favorite pastime of many people, and home cooking tends to take up a lot of time, especially during this ongoing pandemic. So if spending long hours in a hot kitchen cooking, baking, and cleaning is not your thing, there are ways to make it easier and more fun. It is important to have a kitchen management plan, so to speak, in place to help keep vegetables from rotting and food from spoiling, by having good storage methods, using good kitchen tools, gadgets, and recipes. Many obstacles during your time in the kitchen or grilling outside even can be overcome. There are tricks of this trade, which are called kitchen hacks, that will make your kitchen life a bit happier.
Well, as a male chauvinist, I have my kitchen hacks. It's my wife and my mother-in-law.
Malcolm.
Be quiet. So let's ramp up your culinary skills with some guidance from Courtney, who will give us some tips and those kitchen hacks to help make your time in the kitchen more pleasant. Just for your information, my kitchen hack is a bottle of red or a bottle of white, some good music from Billy Joel's The Stranger, which that song came from my Spotify playlist. So Courtney, chefs use many methods to speed up the cooking process, improve storage. Can you start us off with what is a kitchen hack, and then bring us into what these hacks are, some good hacks?
I mean, I don't know if there's any pure definition of what a kitchen hack is. It covers everything, and there are hundreds of kitchen hacks out there, and they're really just fun, and in many cases very practical. It's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think about that? Tips to either save you money, get you out of the kitchen a little bit faster, maybe even save some calories, along the way. And in some cases, it's just sometimes make food tastier. So, some of the ones I came across were things like adding something to an ingredient, like instead of adding sugar to pasta sauce, add baking soda or an acid to it, and it pulls out the flavor. So you save a few calories by not adding the sugar. So little tricks like that. I really tried to narrow down what we're covering today, just because we don't have that much time together, for those that are really going to get you out of the kitchen a little bit faster. And definitely, because I think on this show we always try and give options to help save a little bit of money and reduce waste. So I try to really focus on those that minimize waste, keep you from throwing stuff out, and save you a little bit of money.
Baking soda in pasta sauce, I would never think that in a a million years. That's like an incredible, you'll have to tell us how much and all that.
Yeah,
So,
well, we could start with it's a quarter of a teaspoon to a half of a teaspoon. Some people feel like they don't need it. I mean, I've been making pasta sauce, a really, really long time. It really starts with the quality of the tomatoes with which you begin. So sometimes some are better than others. So if you happen to, you got to taste along the way. I've never really added sugar. That really wasn't something I grew up doing, but lots of people do, to kind of take that edge off the little bit of bitter that might be in those tomatoes. So that presence of that baking soda being alkaline sort of switches down sort of that little bit of that acidity that might be in the tomatoes. It's worth a shot. You might not taste any difference whatsoever, but
I'm going to try it. Absolutely.
So,
Sounds
and then
good.
while we're on that, I'm a queen of adding some type of a little bit of acid along the way, and I'm not going down a dark road here. A little bit of acid, like vinegar or lemon juice, can really perk up the flavor of things. So in my chili, or if I'm making turkey sloppy joes, I always add vinegar. And it really pulls out the flavor and then balances things out. So again, those are more food science tips that may help improve the flavor of whatever it is you're cooking.
Would wine do the same thing?
It can be a little bit careful. Actually, why don't we start with the wine, since you mentioned it? Because a lot of cook with
Yay.
with wine. Most people know this already, but you're better off. I know wine's expensive. So most people are like, if I'm going to buy a bottle of wine, I'm going to drink it. I'm not going to, put it in a food. But it really makes a difference to use, even if it's it doesn't have to be very obviously expensive, but a decent bottle of wine or very mid-price is better than using the cooking wines that are available in a grocery store for sure. In terms of flavor. But so you may have a bottle of wine that's been opened, that's been sitting on your counter. But for example, this was around opened. I have a suction thing that takes the air out, so it preserves it a little bit longer. But invariably, a lot of people have these wine bottles lying around. As we said, wine is expensive. Rather than having to dump it down the drain because it's turned into vinegar, sitting on your counter, or if you've opened white and it's in your refrigerator, it does lose its flavor over time. Great hack. This was one I had not heard of before, but I don't know why, because I freeze other things. Like if I've opened chicken broth or vegetable broth and I don't use it before the expiration, I freeze it into cubes and then I pull it out of the freezer. Orange juice that I've purchased, that if we bought too much, because we don't really drink juice very much, I'll freeze it into cubes. And then if I need a marinade, I could just pull it out of the freezer. I've reduced waste. So it's a great tip. Why not do it for wine? It's fantastic. So
can you freeze wine?
Yes. And I'm going to talk about so some people may know, the alcohol that's in spirits, wine, beer, is ethanol. The freezing point for ethanol is extremely low. Most of us do not have freezers that freeze to the point that you will actually freeze something like, let's say, vodka or gin. Because of the water content in things like beer and wine, you are able to get a frozen consistent. So these, if you were here, these are frozen-ish. They're frozen enough to, once they're in this state, pop them out and put them into a Ziploc bag and store them in the coldest part of your freezer. You save the remaining part of your wine. So next time you need a wine for a recipe, you have it at the ready, just pull it out of the freezer. You want to bring it down to room temperature before you throw it into a pan. But I thought this was brilliant. So yeah, it's not going to freeze to, like, if you think of an ice cube, but it freezes enough to put it in a bag and save it. Loved it. So
now, I never heard of, well, I've heard of cooking with wine, but I also heard cooking sherry. Is that similar?
Certain recipes you have to, I think it really does depend on the recipe. The one thing I would discourage, as I mentioned, is that the ones that are on the shelves, like the cooking wine that's sold typically in the, if you think about the chicken broth aisle, it's just, the flavor's not there.
Don't do it.
Yeah. I would say there are bottles of wine you can get for, under $10 that certainly are perfectly drinkable, maybe not for some, but really fine for cooking. So keep that in mind, and certainly don't waste it if you've got a bottle of wine that's opened up. So thanks for bringing up the wine, because we jumped right ahead to that one. I use, and I know this seems like a small hack to use along the way, butter wrappers are fantastic. They take up no space. So once you've used a stick of butter, keep the wrapper. They make short work of greasing baking pans, jelly roll pans.
Wow.
It's easy, convenient. The little bit of butter that's on here, I'm not going to say it saves a ton of calories, but you know what? It keeps you from really glopping it on inside, which actually isn't great for the baking process. So it's convenient. It's already on something. You throw it out when you're finished. I use this pack a lot, especially this time of year when I'm baking a lot of stuff. So keep that in mind if you use butter and you end up doing a lot of, like I said, greasing the pans for certain things. Freezing tofu, chicken, seafood, meat, it really doesn't matter what it is, but many times in order to get a fine cube or a fine slice of meat products, protein products, the meat's just too soft to really get a nice clean. It ends up crumbling, it's a pain, it takes time. Throw it all in the freezer. This just happens to be tofu for about 15-20 minutes. You don't want to freeze it solid. You want to get it to the point where it's firm enough so that a nice sharp knife is going to make super short work of cubing, slicing, dicing, whatever protein product you're using in really a short amount of time. So it's a great one to keep in mind. Just keep your eye on the clock, because you don't want to keep it in any way longer than there. Again, you don't want to freeze the meat solid. You want it just to firm up to make it to the point where it's more easily cut.
So that's about 15 minutes, you said?
Yep, about 15-20 minutes. I make a wonderful tuna tartare appetizer. And to get the tiny cubes of tuna that you need, it's almost impossible, at least for me. I'm sure a fantastic sushi chef would be able to do it, but I can't. So I throw the tuna in the freezer, get it to a nice firm point, and then I'm able to dice it in the tiniest little cubes, which is perfect for that dish. So 15-20 minutes, great. Nice try.
That's fabulous, because some tofu recipes say to boil it for 15 minutes. And now you're saying to freeze it for 15 minutes.
Well, you know what? That might be another hack. To me, because I'm big on time, it seems a lot easier to throw in the freezer than to have one more pot for me to clean after I'm done.
Well, you have more folks to deal with. Right. It's me, my hubby, and my doggy. My doggy doesn't eat tofu, I promise.
I know we talk a lot about, we've talked about a lot about herbs. This time of year, at least where Maxine, you and I live, unless you have an indoor herb garden, we really, our herbs that might have been grown outside are gone, and we won't see them again until in springtime. So we have to buy our herbs, which can add up. And typically you get a big bunch of herbs like this. You might only need a portion of this, a very small portion of it. Some herbs, as we've spoken about, can be frozen. If they're in, you can make them in, chop them into olive oil and things like that. But a great way to preserve fresh herbs, and several of them should be stored in the refrigerator, parsley being one of them. Basil, you should not. If you want to treat it like flowers. So when you bring it home, clip off the bottom, tiny bit with a pair of scissors or a really sharp knife, put it in clean water and cover it with the bag that they came home in, and put that in your refrigerator. You've created an environment where it's getting moisture, so it's not drying out, and you're preventing the loss of moisture by creating this little sort of hat for it inside your refrigerator. It will keep most herbs for about 2 weeks. So it certainly beats buying this, having it rot in the bottom of your veggie drawer and throwing it out. So again, this is a great way to preserve herbs that, again, you're not going to use the entire amount for one particular recipe.
That's great, actually, because I run into that problem a lot. When you buy it in the store, and even when we had the, our farmer, when we picked up our veggies, they were huge, they were big, and if you have 2 people, there's only so much you can do, right? Large families, one thing, but
Yeah,
you have to learn hacks that, apply to how many people are in your house, I guess. The more or the less, you have to adjust it. It's a matter of balance.
absolutely. But as you know, Maxine, they're not selling. It's like, oh, well, here's the section of herbs for the family of two.
Right. There should be. There's an idea.
See, we were onto something here.
Hey.
I was in the grocery store. Just quick entertaining. I'm always about quick entertaining, things that look like you spent a lot of time, but they're not. You guys have heard of chocolate dipped strawberries, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So a quick little tutorial in doing this at home, because if you buy chocolate dipped strawberries anywhere, you're paying a premium, particularly right now this time of year, because strawberry prices are insane. So I saw that the price, this was a container I had gotten, early in the week. I'm like, you know what? We can do this with what's seasonal right now. Oranges, clementines, the price point is a little bit lower this time of year. So you can very easily, first of all, make this time of year with baking, you can get bags of baking chocolate chips on sale, stock up on them. They will last. They don't last forever, but they do last a good long time in your pantry. So have it on hand, have some clementines to temper chocolate. Okay, you can do it with more pots and pans over the stove. And if you're a purist, have at it. I'm all about speed. So for me, it goes in a glass container, a glass bowl. You have to watch the time. You don't want to scorch the chocolate, and it will scorch if you throw it on for 2 minutes. But you want to do it in 10 to maybe 20-second increments, gradually stirring the chocolate. And eventually you get this beautiful consistency for dipping. To get that nice sheen, a hack is to add a drop of the canola oil, just a tiny bit, and you get that wonderful sheen, which makes it look like you are, the baker to the stars. So it looks great. You know me, I'm always trying to shove antioxidants into people. So you've got fruit, you've got the compounds in the dark chocolate, so it's wonderful. But use oranges, orange slices, clementine slices. The price is a lot more forgiving than strawberries that we're seeing right now. You simply dip it in the chocolate. It's wonderful. There it goes. And then let it cool on a plate, pan, parchment paper, whatever you have, until the chocolate has solidified again, and you have a wonderful fresh dessert at a fraction of the cost that you would have paid if you bought it outside.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that. I like dark chocolate and I like clementines. So that's
actually,
good.
I gotta be honest, that whole orange chocolate thing is really, for a lot of people, it's very appealing. It's a nice complementary.
Appealing.
Yeah.
Whoa. Bit of boom.
There you go. But I'm bummed.
Okay.
For coffee drinkers, what I hear a lot from clients and friends about cooking, they don't like the scent of foods on their hands. So think about garlic. People don't like to chop their own garlic because they say, my hands stink after I cook it. They don't like handling fish because their hands smell like fish. Enter coffee grinds. Nature's most wonderful way of eliminating those food smells from your fingers. So if you are a coffee drinker and you know that you're going to be doing a lot of cooking this time of year, okay, or any time for that matter, keep the coffee grinds, okay? Rub a little bit. If you want to, you can actually mix in a little something emollient like a mineral oil, even an unscented lotion, just to get some, the viscosity, so you can actually rub it onto your hands. The coffee scent is a natural way to remove those scents from your fingers. So it works wonderfully. I know it seems odd, but if you've got the coffee grinds in your home already, just give it a shot. Trust me on this one. It works.
Can you keep the grinds from your daily coffee, or can you keep it longer somewhere?
You could certainly keep it longer somewhere. You could probably I would probably say store it in your small section of your refrigerator. You don't need much. This is actually just a portion of my coffee grinds from this morning. You don't really need a lot. It really does a wonderful job of eliminating that smell.
Yeah, because I use my French press, so it's easier to get the grinds from that than like any.
Does anyone cook with gloves on? I've never seen it.
Yeah, they have chef gloves, no?
Well, they do. I mean, I will tell you, Mike, because it's handy over here. I mean, the only one who does use it, if I put my son to work, they have these Kevlar gloves. but they're cumbersome. I think most people who do a lot of cooking will find even the thin latex or even non-latex gloves to just get in the way, and things will catch. So I'm sure the answer to that, Malcolm, is I'm sure people do, but I feel like it's a little bit of a barrier, and it keeps you from like really having great grip on your knives. Certainly don't want any knife accidents in there, but it works really, really well. Just give it a try. Let me know what you think. If you don't drink coffee, and I have purchased these as gifts for people before, I'll post this, you know, on my website and on my Instagram account, that sell coffee soaps. So there's coffee grinds mixed in here. This one's called the Kitchen Scrubby Soap. And it literally looks like, it doesn't, I will tell you, it doesn't look very appealing, but it functions perfectly. So it's got coffee grinds kind of mixed into there, and you keep it, you know, by your kitchen sink. Works fabulously. But in the absence of that, go low tech, save some money, use the coffee grinds that are already in your house. It's a great, great hack. Love that one. I use that one a lot.
What about tea leaves?
Oh, you know what? I would have to try tea leaves. I wonder.
Because I use loose tea as well, and so I'll have coffee and tea, and I'll have leaves. And what I do is I put water in the pot after, and then I throw the tea leaves outside on my shrubs, you know, in the earth there. And you can do that with coffee grinds too.
Do you tell fortunes after?
Absolutely, the tea leaves are floating, you know. But I'm just curious what you would do with tea leaves from the loose tea, that if you make loose tea.
Oh, I wonder. I will have to do a field experiment, Maxine, but I don't know the answer to that.
All right.
That could be our next show, New Discoveries by Courtney.
That's right. That's right. So we've spoken before about great pantry items, things to keep on hand. I'm a big fan of the shredded bags of cheese for, you know, quick snacks, quick meals. Some brands are better than others. But whenever anybody does anything for you, like a convenience, like the cheese is shredded for you, there's typically a price tag. You know, there's an upcharge for that. So if you're looking to, you know, you use a lot of cheese, but let's say you got a big family, you're using a lot of cheese, a great kitchen hack would be to buy the block of it, you buy the, you know, the good quality cheese. Use your box grater. This should be something that's in your kitchen. If not, and you do a lot of cooking, you may want to consider purchasing one. Not very expensive at all. You're going to want to just put a spritz of cooking oil, cooking spray on the outside of the grates. One of the barriers of you grating your own, and again, then you have to clean it all, is the cheese gets stuck and it becomes this gooey mess in the grates in here. Spritz that cooking spray on there and it makes very quick cleanup. And then you've got your cheese and you've got it at a price point that's a little bit lower than if you bought it already shredded. And you can grate a lot of cheese with these box graters. They're really designed to do a lot of work in a very short amount of time.
Would that work with potatoes as well, that hack, or does it matter?
Well, I guess it would work, but I bet you it would work even better because potatoes are not nearly as sticky and fatty as the cheese is. So yeah, I can't imagine. And you don't need a lot. I mean, just like I said, those little cooking sprays are going to work really, really well. For those of you who have fresh ground peanut butter or the natural peanut butters that are just nuts ground and that's it, most people may be familiar with this hack. Store it upside down. One of the issues with the fresh ground peanut butter is that, you know, the oil is going to rise to the top and then you're fishing through the oil to get to the peanut butter. Well, if you store it upside down, that process is then reversed. You just turn it and then the stirring process is a lot easier. I know it seems like, why is that such a barrier? But believe me, it is a barrier for a lot of people. It's like, I can't be bothered with stirring it. It's gross, all the oil. So store it upside down. Just make sure the lid is tight. Otherwise, you guys are going to be emailing me with lots of hate mail for the giant mess that's inside your.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I got one of my pet peeves about the natural peanut butter. When I open it up, it takes me at least 10, 15 minutes to stir it.
Yeah, store it upside down. Have you tried that?
Good tip.
Great tip.
No, it's a great one. Okay, so I always try to have a bottle of something chill in the refrigerator, but if this time of year you find yourself entertaining and you don't have any cold wine, beer, cold Prosecco, whatever it is you're serving, you can do a fast chill process. Do you guys know, are you familiar with this?
No, I'm not.
I mean, is this require putting it in a freezer? I mean, what do you?
Nope, but I
Oh,
am.
then the answer is no.
I'm gonna put on my geek hat. This is my geek alert, and we're
Good.
gonna talk just a couple of seconds about the freezing point depression. So all you need is some kind of container that fits the bottle that you're trying to chill. Water, ice cubes, salt, and agitation.
Salt.
Okay, so salt, okay, is going to reduce the freezing point, making your solution colder. The agitation helps speed that process along. So you put water, as much ice as you can throw in there. So you've got like a bath. The salt water is key because that's what's going to depress that freezing point. Put your beverage in there, and the agitation is really going to help that along. So within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I feel like that's our buzz point for a lot of things today. Your beverage will be cold. So it's a great quick tip for pretty much anything you're trying to get chilled faster. On the flip side of that, if you're boiling water, okay, most people know this, you always want to salt your water after it's boiled, not before. Because if you salt it beforehand, you're going to be waiting a lot longer for that water to boil. So let it boil first, then throw the salt in, and it'll come back up pretty quickly. So again, a lot of people know that already, but it's the exact, you think about what it's doing with the cold, it's doing the exact opposite.
You know, here's a question I wanted to ask you, which I'm never sure about. They say serve red wine at room temperature. Now, the room temperature in the days of stirring wine were like in the mid-60s. Now, when you have wine in the house, sometimes the temperature could be, you know, like in the 70s or 80s, and the red wine is warm. Is there a way of, is there a certain temperature that you should bring the red wine to before you drink it?
The answer to that is yes. What that number is off the top of my head, I don't know. My friend Glenn would know, because he knows this very well. He's knows so much about, in particular, red wine. He has an entire room. I mean, people who really love wine, you notice they have sometimes a wine fridge, and there's a temperature set for red and there's a temperature set for white to avoid that situation, Malcolm, because you're right. In the summertime, your house might be warmer and you don't want that. You don't want it to be too warm. I will have to get back to you about that. I'm sure.
Yeah, because sometimes I put the red wine in the refrigerator. My wife looks at me like I'm crazy.
Right. You mean just to make sure it's not that warm.
You know, down a certain, but not to get it chilled, but to get not to get it warm.
Yeah.
We know you're crazy, Malcolm, so that's okay.
Oh, thank you.
Anytime. Say hi to Anna for me.
It's great to have friends.
It really is. So I don't have any in my fridge. Otherwise, I've shown, you know how sometimes eggs come either in the cardboard container, a dozen eggs, or they'll come in the plastic ones. And then some of those can be recycled. So before you recycle it, rinse it out, and they make a great home for if you're making sauces, like pesto sauce, chimichurri, and you just need a small amount. Put it inside the cup, sort of the egg slot in the plastic container, put it in your freezer. Again, you can see I'm a big fan of it. Once they're frozen, pop it out of the plastic, put it in a resealable container, and put that back in your freezer. Those individual sizes are perfect. They defrost very, very quickly. And sometimes for things like pesto, you don't need a lot. So it makes a great way to make use of leftover sauces and these chimichurris and things like that that you may be, cooking with on a regular basis. You guys know I've spoken about this. If I'm chopping garlic, I chop once and I make a lot. And I put some of those same thing in those containers, and then I have them to go when I'm looking for a quick meal during the week or on the weekend.
I'm thinking you probably could be handy for a restaurant owner, advising in the kitchen to save money and to make things faster.
Well, I don't know about the fast, the saving money. I don't know. I feel like chefs and people who own restaurants, most of them they know.
They know
don't
the stuff.
flying out the window. They know stuff.
No, I picture them chopping, and throwing things out.
Well, I don't know how much, I'd be curious to see how much composting gets done, and who knows, right?
Yeah,
Great,
it's hard to
picked-
say.
yeah, some great tips I've picked up from some friends. So my one friend reminded me today about, and I know we talked about using bacon last week, not a lot, a little goes a long way. So if you do eat bacon, you really don't need much, but the problem is the pounds of bacon, they're usually sold in 1 pound, 2 pound packages. So you don't want to use all that. And once it's opened, I mean, it'll last a certain amount of time in your fridge, but it's not going to live there forever. So what do? Well, you roll it into, you roll each slice up. Again, take some time on the weekend. A little bit of work on the back end will help you on the front end. Put it in a container, freeze it. And when it comes, when you need a few slices to make, maybe a soup or a base for something, you just pluck it out of the freezer. And you put it
Courtney, I know you have 1,001 other suggestions,
and that's it.
but our time is out.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh,
Right, half hour goes fast. But you know what I wanted to mention to you? I did a lot of sales for radio, and a lot of my clients were chef owners of restaurants.
Okay.
And I go to the kitchen, to do the sales. They're never free to do a meeting. I had to go to the kitchen while they were cooking, and
Okay.
there's a certain delight, and they enjoyed that so much. And I find out that when you talk about food, you have a certain delight in your talking. You really, really like what you're doing. And
Oh, is that me?
and it
That's
comes
you.
out, yeah. That's you.
Oh, thank you.
You reminded me of the chefs as they're working and preparing their food. You talking about the things, the time-saving things, and the foods. You have that certain, je ne sais quoi.
Well,
Uh,
I just want Courtney to adopt me.
Both of us.
That's it. Oh, both of us, right?
Yeah, we can share, Courtney. We can share you.
That's right.
okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you
Sounds-
very much. I appreciate that, Mel.
Anyway, guys, you have
All right.
a good week.
Let me close out here.
Close out.
And Courtney, that was some really great tips. Thank you. I learned stuff today I didn't know myself. So thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness, and visit her website, CourtneyGravenese.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. Courtney on Health, smart, sound nutrition, strong, safe fitness, and we'll catch you next time.
Catch you next week. Bye.
Ta-ta, bye.
Ta-ta.